you know, I don't know how much you all are actually privy to the amount of strength that the people of Palestine derive from seeing the solidarity around the world. And I think that that sounds like a preposterous statement, as we know that we've been deriving our strength from the people of Palestine in these moments. But if you speak to people on the ground in Gaza, uh, with all that they are going through, and you speak to the Palestinian people as a whole right now in the West Bank, of course, those that are especially under uh, some of the new aggressions that are taking place, especially around Jenin and Tulkarm, there is this sense of great joy that they have when they see the solidarity all around. I want to actually start from a place that, I myself, uh, at times, of course, feel deflated just like everyone else as we see the great devastation and the great destruction that's taking place with our people. I had the chance to go to Qatar to visit a compound where you have about 1,200 to 1,500, almost all amputees that have been evacuated from Gaza and that are receiving medical treatment in Qatar. And I want you to kind of just think of the site. It's a pretty weird place. I'm starting for a reason from this place. It's a pretty weird place because you walk into this compound and it's actually nice buildings. Everything about the city, the area that it's around, um, is actually pretty normal. In fact, better than normal. You've got really nice fields, you've got really nice buildings, but then you have like this city of amputees, people walking around without arms, almost everyone missing some limbs, and they're either on a wheelchair or they're walking around without something that's visible in terms of their arms, or missing, an eye, or have the wounds, the after effect of a bombing or an airstrike. And uh, it's kind of strange. I want you to think about it, right? It's like the people of Gaza, but in a rebuilt city. Like if you kind of imagine Gaza being rebuilt, and we do believe, of course, that it will be rebuilt and that Palestine will be freed. It's almost like a preview of what the future could be in that regard, right? At the end of the day, you're not going to be able to restore the limbs. You're not going to be able to revive the loved ones that have been taken away. So you kind of walk into this place, and it's kind of a strange feeling, to see that dichotomy, right? And that disparity between the environment and the situation of the people. And as I was kind of walking around, meeting different people, speaking to them, checking up on them, of course, as advertised, the people of Gaza are a people of incredible resilience, a people of incredible strength. And so they don't complain about their situation. Um, they say Alhamdulillah, they praise their God. They say that, this is a test that's been visited upon us, and we know that we've been chosen for a test, and we're going to return to Gaza and we're going to rebuild. They express faith that their loved ones are in a better place now, and that they will return to Gaza and make it a better place. But one thing that struck me, as I was kind of sinking into this level of despair, which can happen periodically, right? As you're kind of witnessing just the gruesome nature of what's taking place. One thing that just stood out to me is that they all were very interested in the encampments. Like all of them were asking questions about the encampments. They're like, "Wow, what's happening with those encampments? MashaAllah, this is amazing to see people, taking to their school lawns. Is it really as we see on TV? Are they going to be able to bring about change? Are they going to be able to bring about, divestment? Is this going to make policymakers listen to us? Is this going to make the public more aware?" So, I mean, people were asking about the exact same thing every single time. And I couldn't help but think to myself, if this is the only thing that we get out of this, then I'm okay with that. Like, if the only thing that we get out of our global solidarity that is that the people of Palestine are aware of our solidarity, and that gives them some sense of joy, some sense of companionship in the midst of their misery, some sense of hope that when they are eventually granted victory in their struggle, that they're going to have a global population that will be with them, then it makes it all worth it. And I think that we have to kind of think about what everyone is seeing right now. When you talk about injustice and oppression, it's one thing to know that it exists. It's another thing to see it play out in real time. And for many reasons, when things happen out of sight, they don't resonate with the human spirit. They don't stir the heart or disturb the conscience the way that they do when you actually see them. And that's why oppressors always kind of attempt the blackout method, right? Make sure that no one sees what they're doing. We just saw that Israel knocked out an AP camp yesterday. We obviously see the shutdown of Al Jazeera, and we see the murder of 150 journalists or so at this point, because Israel understands that the more that people are exposed to their crimes, the more that there will be a possibility of them being held accountable, the more that they would lose public opinion and the narrative, the global public narrative. But also, the more that people would be exposed to those that they are oppressing, right? And as much as we have drifted into an era of technology, there still is some sort of pulse that we see right now with humanity. And if you think about all of the global struggles in the world right now, there isn't quite anything that is bringing about a global response the way that Palestine is. And that's for many reasons, right? But the more that you become exposed to something, the more that you become responsible for that thing, right? And that's also part of this, is that the more that we see them, the more that we need to do for them. But we shouldn't have to see them in their oppression to work against that oppression that is being inflicted upon them. We shouldn't have to see it. But when we see it, we become that much more energized, that much more empathetic. It activates something within us that is absolutely necessary. And just as we see them, they see us. Here's something really interesting about, Gaza. And if you think about, where we're at in terms of the unprecedented nature of this, it is very reasonable that a person has access to their Instagram for 3 days before they have a single bite of food. I want you to think about that. That means that there are, tens of thousands of people that are able to scroll through their feed and to see what everyone else in the world is doing while they're unable to eat. In fact, some of them distract themselves with their technology. So if you think about just that idea, right? What are they seeing? They're seeing indifference, lots of indifference, right? Because all of the people of Gaza know people outside of Gaza, right? Have relatives, have friends, whatever it is. They're seeing indifference. They're seeing, they're seeing the ugliness of the mouthpieces of their oppressors. So they're actually able to see people call them animals as they get treated like animals, because all that stuff gets translated and all that stuff gets transmitted, right, through their different feeds. And they're able to see solidarity. They're able to see people posting prayers for them. They're able to see connection with each other in the midst of all of this. So in the compounded cruelty of it all, there's also compounded humanity, right? And they're getting that feed. Now, with all of that being said, we want to do more. This is not just about, simply being visible. This is about being effective. And when you're in the midst of something like this, you're simply knocking on doors, and you have to expect that if you're going to knock on 10 doors, sometimes 9 of those doors are not going to open. But the question is, are you going to knock on another set of doors? Are you going to enter into the door that opened? And if a crack opens, you take it, because that's what continued struggle looks like. That's what consistent struggle looks like. And in a world where, attention span is dwindling, where it is harder to watch something that is beyond 10 minutes, it's that much harder to stay, interested in and committed to ending a struggle that has been going on for decades. Israel counted on the Palestinian people tapping out a long time ago. They were not supposed to still be fighting. They were supposed to be gone by now. They were supposed to forget their identity. They were supposed to move on from their culture. They were supposed to settle in different places. They were supposed to accept their place under occupation and apartheid. They were supposed to move on. And the fact that they haven't moved on is deeply frustrating to them. The same thing is true of this genocide. I want you to know that if you speak to people in Gaza, yes, there are people that talk about getting out and talk about finding temporary relief. There are people that want to escape to Egypt temporarily, and maybe even some that want to just get out and have had so much trauma inflicted upon them in the moment that they feel like they need that, that page to be turned in their lives. But the overwhelming majority of people in Gaza, even as they do not get respite for a moment from the sounds of the drones and from the pain of starvation and from the continued mass slaughter, the overwhelming majority in Gaza, in the midst of that all, still say, we're not leaving. We're going to rebuild, even if it takes 50 years, even if it takes 60 years. I want you to think about the mindset of a 70 or 80-year-old right now who says, we're going to rebuild even if it takes 50 years. We're going to rebuild even if it takes 60 years. I mean, think about that, right? Who's still left for you? If you think about your casualties in your family, how much time do you have left on Earth? Don't you want to just retire, move on to somewhere else and find your place? Absolutely not, right? People are talking about rebuilding. And the last thing that I'll say here, as we think about sort of this global commitment to justice, one of the most disturbing elements of this war, in my opinion, and this genocide, is the use of new technologies that are even further disconnected from human decision making. Now, I'll preface that by saying that Israeli cruelty is is not is not far removed from AI technology that is indiscriminate. In fact, in many ways, the cruelty of Israel towards the Palestinian people is even worse than a machine making decisions on itself and carrying out mass slaughter, because there is an element of hatred and intentionality to wipe out women and children and innocent people and to inflict great pain. A propensity for that's found within the Israeli occupation forces that is absolutely disgusting to us all, repulsive to us all. But if you think about the technology that's being deployed right now, that it independently is able to carry out mass slaughter away from human decision making, right? We also cannot simply count on our technology and solidarity to, to press a button to show that we're there. We also have to physically be engaged in struggle. These encampments have given us an opening, and it might be a different method of protest tomorrow. But anyone that says that protests don't work, saying that they've been proven wrong is an understatement, right? The protests in the street, the physical presence of people gathering in different parts of the world has an effect. It's contagious, right? It spreads throughout the global population. It has an effect. And it's important for us to keep feeding off of the energy of each other, to stay engaged in the struggle physically, whatever that looks like, right, for us in different parts of the world. But it's important that we keep feeding off of each other's energy and that we keep reminding each other of the importance of this and that we stay committed until it's all over. Just as, we speak about how it's important for those that are in Gaza to not simply achieve a ceasefire, but to have their full independence in all of Palestine, to have their full self-determination. We have to stay the course. I end with a tradition from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, where he said that for me to walk with my brother in need until I finish or complete his need for him is more beloved to me than seclusion in my mosque. I want you to think about that. There's an emphasis in this tradition, not just on the blessing of being engaged in struggle for someone else's need and prioritizing that, in fact, over your own voluntary spiritual liturgy that would keep you going throughout the night, but also the emphasis on completing the need, qada'ul haja, that I will stay the course. Because more people will do the initial hand-holding than those that will complete the course. It's always going to be just a few that are going to complete the course. And if you put in your mind right now that I will complete the course, no matter how long it is, and it's really difficult to know when you don't know how much you're looking at, how long is the course. But if you think about, and I always look throughout the protests, and I'm amazed by these lifelong activists, right? There are people that have been doing this literally for decades, for their entire life. There are people that can barely move, yet somehow still find ways to be engaged in the movement. I kind of look at that person, I'm like, I want to be that person. I want to be that person. It's likely that oppression will continue to exist in some form, but I hope I'm not still organizing for Palestine 30, 40 years from now, because I hope by then it's freed and that people have returned to their homes and that people have been able to build and that we can move on to the next struggle, and build momentum. Oppression is perpetual, and the movement against oppression has to be perpetual as well. So again, just thank you all for your solidarity. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for staying the course. And I pray that you continue to find ways to be of benefit and to be energized towards righteousness. I can't hear you, by the way. Sorry, you're on mute. 5 years after COVID, we're still figuring this out, right?
Right, Jazakallah so much, Dr. Umar. May Allah bless you. Really inspirational. And thank you for having us. Thank you for speaking to us. And I think everyone can say it was quite inspiring. And we really appreciate taking out your precious time just to speak to a bunch of students. Jazakallah so much.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum. Travelers.